Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We got some games left. We got some tall orders in front of us from a competition standpoint, but you have to believe. You have to believe in your players. I do. And I believe that we're going to play our best baseball at the right time of the year. And I'll believe that to the last pitch is thrown.
They all show flashes. You just got to find a consistent guy that goes out there and does his thing. And he pitched well at Boston College. Jake's been pitching better. I think Clayton's been pitching pretty good too. So we got some options to choose from on Sunday. We'll go Crown over and Irwin in the first two games and figure out the third one when we get there.
Yeah, we're on bubble watch with South Carolina and Clemson baseball this weekend and, well, for the next few weekends as they get ready to open series on the road this weekend. USC about to get started against Tennessee, and Clemson within the hour will crank things up in Atlanta against Georgia Tech. Good evening. Welcome into Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes at your service. Phil Kornbluth with, I would say, a much-deserved night off. But no, he doesn't deserve it. But he's getting it nonetheless. Corn with the night off. Pope behind the glass. Graham Pope pushing the buttons, doing everything he can to keep us on the air and sounding as best we possibly can here on a Friday night. TGIF, we're glad you're with us. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to wrap up the week strong. That's what we like to do. We have to give you everything you need to get through the weekend when we're not going to be around for a few days. So we'll deliver a great show for you tonight. We've got a lot of topics to kick around, some guests that are going to join us. I'll tell you more about them coming up as well. But Pro, want to welcome you in and tell you happy Friday.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, you were talking about the baseball teams on the bubble, and I always think about why do fans root for teams? And one of the reasons you root for teams is they have probably some misgivings, they have some problems, they need your help in winning. And that also means that you can get bored. I mean, Alabama fans are bored because if they don't win the national title, it's not a good season. So you gotta hit a valley sometime to figure out and cheer when they reach their apex, reach their zenith. So this is one of those years where South Carolina and Clemson's scheduling, but maybe some good things around the corner. Who knows?
You never know. And that's what Chad Holbrook said on the show last night. Look, everybody remembers Fresno State. They were the last team in. They were a number 4 seed. They won a national championship. Cal State Fullerton ended up in Omaha last year. They were a bubble team. Once you get into the tournament, anything can happen, and especially in baseball. Especially in baseball, you get a hot pitcher that can carry you through. Your team catches fire. You've seen it happen. In fact, you could make a strong case that 2010 South Carolina team, they were an example of that. They got hot at the right time. Remember, they had to go to Coastal Carolina. They didn't have to leave the Palmetto State, but they did have to play a road super regional, and they got hot at the right time.
Took a grand slam to turn things around.
It can happen.
And,
yeah,
of course,
Christian
they've
Walker.
never played well, even in their championship years in the SEC tournament. They go in, have a cup of coffee, and they leave Hoover.
A lot of things can happen. We'll keep an eye on those games for you. We'll tell you what we have coming up. It's a lot. Don't go away. Sports Talk just getting started on a Friday night. Sports Talk on a Friday night. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes with you. Phil Kornblut with the night off. Graham Pope behind the glass. If you want to join us, 800-956-7266. We will take your phone calls tonight, 800-956-7266. Toll-free call for you. If you're a little shy and don't want to do the phone thing, you can hit us up via email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. Maybe tweeting's your thing and you want to interact with us in 140 characters or less, go to @SportsTalkSC, give us a follow, shoot us a tweet there. You can also like us on Facebook, Sports Talk Radio Network. Go to facebook.com/Sports Talk Radio Network and give us a like. Our website always up and running and available and at your service, SportsTalkSC.com. Before we tell you what we have coming up, and we have a lot of things coming up for you, let's give you a quick update because there's already action in Rocky Top. They cranked that game up at the top of the hour, so they are in the first inning, and the Gamecocks did not waste any time. They strike first. Gene Cone leads off with a single. DC Arendis followed that up with a single. Then Max Schrock driving in the first run of the game, the only run of the game to this point, with a sac fly to right field. And the inning ending with Arendis caught stealing at second base, but the Gamecocks do get a run on the board for Jack Wynkoop, who will now pitch in the bottom half of the first inning. 1 run on 2 hits for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, interesting combination of things I tried to do last night before I went to bed, because if a game starts to get good, I have to turn it off because then I can't sleep and I have to watch it.
All right.
And that is, I kept bouncing from NBA playoffs to LSU to Texas A&M because they were, and I was just enthralled by both. That was a great college baseball game last night, and that's college baseball 1 and 2, and LSU, of course, wins with that single in the bottom of the 9th inning. But that series still going on, and I think isn't the Gamecock Sunday game going to be televised? I think. I'm not sure.
I can tell you right now, the
the
Sunday game will be. Well, I've got the game notes right here. That would be the best place to look. The Sunday game against Tennessee will be on the SEC Network, at 1 o'clock. Both games are SEC Network Plus tomorrow at 1 o'clock, but on the regular SEC Network
on Sunday
at 1 o'clock on Sunday. So, yeah, you can check it out there. And Clemson gets started at the top of the hour. We'll keep you up to date on that. Coming up later, former USC first baseman and current Gamecock baseball analyst on SEC Plus and SEC Network, depending on his assignment, Trey Dyson will join us and see if he can dissect what's going on with the Gamecocks and if he expects them to make the postseason, if they can make any noise down the stretch, if he buys into what Chad Holbrook is saying, and he's seen this team up close and personal as much as anybody this season. So we'll check in with him. Mike Morgan, who is at Auburn, he's at Plainsman Park, Auburn and Georgia playing this weekend. Morgan on the call there for the SEC Network. He will join us with a Braves report as they head to the city of brotherly love to take on the Phillies. Atlanta just 1 game over 500 now after that great start. They dropped 3 straight in New York against the Mets. So the Mets kind of running a little bit of space between them and everybody else in the NL East. It's really early, as we all know.
They'll need it.
I think they have staying power. Now, the Nationals are very good. It's going to be who can stay healthy. Is Washington built for the long haul?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, they're pitching. Yeah. I mean, I like Gio Gonzalez. Everybody likes Strasburg, but he's a guy. I mean, they used to shut him down because he couldn't make it the whole season.
Strasburg just can't beat Atlanta. That's the only team that seems to have his number. For some other reason, he sees those tomahawks on the shirt, and he can't pitch for some reason. So they have his number. But other than that, he's a solid pitcher, and they got some good hitting. Of course, they got to get a Worth back, and then their lineup will be set. With him out, they really don't have a guy that protects their first 3 batters.
And Pro, you mentioned the NBA playoffs, and there are 3 games on the docket tonight. And we will have Lee Klein, who talks college basketball with us all college basketball season. But when we turn the calendar into late April, early May, into June, we talk NBA with him. And we will see if we can connect with Lee Klein from Slam Magazine, former Texas assistant coach and 5-star camp founder. We'll talk some NBA playoff action. I'll be the first to admit I have not watched a lot of the NBA playoffs to this point. I will get into it. It's hard when I've endured a season as a Laker fan. It's not that I'm not a loser. I enjoyed watching the Celtics lose last night. I did catch a piece of that, but I haven't hunkered down and watched entire games the way I will hopefully start doing. I haven't caught that bug. It really, when you have a team that wins 20 games the entire season, watching that kind of basketball, you get disenfranchised.
With the other two gems that happened last night, you're talking about the Celtics game after watching Steph Curry.
Yeah,
and then
Steph
the Bulls
Curry
go
dropped
2
40.
OTs with Derrick Rose. Get on board, Kim.
Yeah, and Derrick Rose isn't hurt. He,
and
we can't make any slights on Derrick Rose. Like the old Derrick Rose is playing right now.
And let's face it, the two games also showed that you got two young teams that potentially could be dangerous in Milwaukee and the Pelicans. Because, they gave Chicago all they wanted last night. And, of course, the young guy from Duke who tore up his knees, not only even in the lineup now. He comes back. Milwaukee looks like a dangerous team. And maybe Jason Kidd can coach after all.
We'll see. Yeah, we will see about that. But we'll talk some NBA hoops with Lee Klein in the next hour. We will also have some recruiting coming up this hour. Seventh Woods, the highly touted prospect out of Hammond. There's been some scuttlebutt out there that he could be closing in on a commitment to Frank Martin and USC. We'll give you the latest on that, some football nuggets to drop in as well. But your phone calls definitely encouraged. If there's something that is on your mind that you want to discuss, feel free to do so. 800-956-7266. We can still put the wraps on spring football now that is fully in the rearview mirror and we're into the off season. What we can expect, what you want to see happen between now and the summer, storylines that you're going to be following closely between now and the start of fall camp, freshmen that you want to see get onto campus. I guess if you're a Gamecock fan, they want to see Shamik Blackshear and what he's going to do. That's an added bonus now. That question mark is no longer a question mark. He has been cleared in the courts. He's been cleared by the head ball coach to enroll at USC, and that is another defensive end, pass rusher that could certainly be an impact player in terms of chasing the ball. Think about a pass rusher. You might not get a ton of work in terms of snaps, but you can just tell a great athletic pass rusher, go chase the ball. That's what Jadeveon Clowney, his freshman year, was not a starter. He was a guy that they just told to go chase the ball. They put him in on obvious passing situations when they wanted somebody to make a play, and he did make plays. Some of his biggest plays were probably made as a freshman. That one against Georgia in between the hedges where he forced a fumble, and then I think it was a little scoop and score action. Who was the play? Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram picked that ball up. Yeah, the
ball magnet, Melvin Ingram. Yeah, the interesting thing about that is the fact that early on, when you don't have a book on a guy, even though he's a top recruit, you do things to shake people up. And remember on that play, Clowney was actually lined up at a tackle. So when the guard looked up, by the time he raised his head, the quickness of Clowney, he was by him. He just flew by him. You're talking about a Matador cape, and then he was on the court.
I was talking to somebody in Michigan from one of our Learfield properties in Michigan, the sports director there, and he said they still talk about that play in the Outback Bowl, the Clowney hit, which is etched in time. Obviously, Jadeveon Clowney will not be back out there, although the Gamecocks would love for that to happen. Clowney will be in the Carolina. Well, will he play? That's the September 20th game. The Panthers play the Texans at Bank of America Stadium. That would be a true homecoming for him. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from his hometown in Rock Hill. That would be an awesome story if it happens. Clowney, they say he might be a little bit ahead of schedule, some people in Houston. So week 2, maybe not out of the realm of possibility. On the PGA Tour, play is suspended at the Zurich Classic in New Orleans. Hudson Swafford and Boo Weekley. Everybody loves Boo Weekley, a guy that has had a lot of success over at the RBC Heritage. He's at 11 under. He didn't get through his round. He made it through 15 holes. Swafford is in the clubhouse, made it in before the weather. And then there's a cluster of players at 10 under par, including Jerry Kelly and Jason Day and Daniel Berger and Cameron Triangle. All those guys at 10 under par. Retief Goosen's at 8 under par. I'm just looking at some other notables here on this leaderboard. Dustin Johnson is playing in this tournament. He was through 14 holes, 2 under on his round today. 7 under for the tournament is DJ. So a few of the names there at the Zurich Classic. Jonathan Bird, 5 under par. Another local that I see popping up on the leaderboard at Tommy Two Gloves Gainey, Bishopville's own, also at 5 under, and he's through his second round. He had a great round today. He was 1 over yesterday, 6 under on his round today, fired 66. So he posted a number. And let me see if Lucas Glover, he's going to make the cut, it would appear. He's at 4 under through 15 holes in his second round. So that's where the cut is right now, is at 4 under, as long as he doesn't give one back when they resume play in the morning and finish the second round and then pick up the third round. That is the Zurich Classic. All right. Trey Dyson joining us at the bottom of the hour. So we'll pass along that information that he has to offer with the Gamecock baseball team and what's happening there. They are now playing in Knoxville, and they are leading 1-0 in the top of the second inning now. The Gamecocks batting with 2 out and 1 on with a 1-0 lead. Tennessee has committed an error already, and the Gamecocks now with 4 hits. In fact, Logan Cook, our coach, just hit a home run, 2 RBI. So a guy that's been
Koch.
Yeah, Koch. Yeah. That's how little respect he's getting right now. I butchered his name. If you don't hit above 158, it's hard to get a lot of love. But yeah, Koch just homered to right field, drove in 2 unearned runs because of a Tennessee error, and it's 3-0 Gamecocks. Ooh. So a very good start for the Gamecocks in Knoxville, and they need this. I mean, let's face it, Tennessee, they entered this one 16-20, 5-13. In the SEC,
but they can't score.
They can score. Well, a little bit. I mean, they're hitting 257 as a team. They've actually been worse offensively than the Gamecocks this season. They've only scored 164 runs to the Gamecocks 225. They're both hitting 257 this season. Both teams have struggled. Haven't hit a ton of home runs anyway. Struggle isn't the right word, but South Carolina with 27 and Tennessee with 25. So they're relatively evenly matched offensively, but Tennessee, its ERA over 4, the Gamecocks at 3.76. So they've struggled a little bit getting guys out.
Fielding percentage for Tennessee, that's where the big bugaboo is. They
960. Yeah, the Gamecocks 969. Not a ton better. But yeah, 960 if you're Tennessee. And right now, that error costly. 2 unearned runs on the board for the Gamecocks, as it is 3-0. Cruising through a Friday night here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Wherever you have us dialed in around the state, we're glad you're with us. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes holding it down tonight. Phil Kornblut with the night off. We've got Graham Pope behind the glass pushing all of the buttons. If you want to join us, you can. 800-956-7266. That is the toll-free number. Follow us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Drop us an email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. It's 3-0 USC on top of Tennessee, bottom of the second inning, 3-4-0 for the Gamecocks, 0-0-1 for the Volunteers. Two of those runs for USC unearned after an error, but Coach with the home run for the Gamecocks to right field, driving in those two runs, and that made it 3-0 for USC. Former USC first baseman Trey Dyson on the line with us now, also a Gamecock analyst on television for the SEC Network and, well, all sorts of places Trey Dyson's talking baseball these days, including Sports Talk, and we're happy to have Trey on with us. How you doing, Trey? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. How are you, K-Mac?
I'm doing outstanding. I know you've got to be feeling pretty good now with the Gamecocks off to a good start in Knox Vegas.
Yeah, especially since I predicted Logan Koch hitting an opposite field home run in his first at bat tonight.
That maybe that's a sign that it's just going to go the Gamecocks' way. Entering this one, he entered this game hitting 186. He had hit one home run all season. So yeah, I think that might be a sign that maybe the luck's going to turn for them. And he had the big hit against Vanderbilt last week.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Koch doesn't have many hits on the year, but. And, I mean, I remember three off the top of my head. One's the Vanderbilt. One was actually a midweek game where he hit a home run. That was the only runs that we scored the entire game. We ended up winning that game. And tonight, he just ambushes a fastball and clocks it the other way. And yeah, anytime you can hit an opposite field home run, I don't care what level you're in, but that means you got some talent. So that tells me that there might be a little bit more in Logan Koch's bat.
Is there a little bit more in this Gamecock season than people are expecting?
Well, we're off to a great start tonight. Jack Weinkoop is certainly a great pitcher. If he can get us off to a great start, we have some very capable arms where if they pitch like they did against Vanderbilt, which was going right after them, throwing strikes, not trying to get too cute, throwing breaking balls on 0-0 and 1-0 pitches, then they can certainly succeed. I mean, we got Kyle Martin, Elliott Caldwell, Max Schrock, Gene Cohn. Those guys get on base. Kyle Martin drives them home tonight. Logan Koch is Mike Piazza. You know, he's yes. So the answer is yes. They can certainly win, but they can't win if they can't field the ball. They can't win if they fall behind in counts. It's like they just have to play solid baseball, which they're very capable of playing. And if they do, then certainly they can win their fair share of games the rest of the way out.
Obviously, you look at this team and they've got some talent. So you look at this season and they get into the middle of the season or right after the sweep of Kentucky, and they go into that prolonged SEC funk plus stumbling in some midweek games. In your opinion, Trey, is that talent or is that somewhat of a mental letdown when trying to face adversity, and the team still is trying to develop leaders to shake them out of those situations?
Well, that's a good question. You know, to me, it's pretty simple. It's you remember in Bull Durham, it's a simple game. You throw the ball, you catch the ball, you hit the ball. It's pretty simple, and it starts with our pitchers throwing strikes and getting ahead of hitters, challenging hitters, and getting ahead in the count. And for our hitters, we got to be able to be ready when we get in hitters' counts. We got to take advantage of it. And fielding, I mean, we have missed so many routine. We've made so many bad errors this year that you just can't win games like that. And you know, whenever we went on that slide, we were trying to get too cute with our pitchers instead of challenging hitters. And you know, we were messing with the lineup probably a little too much for Coach Holbrook's liking. You know, Alex Destino is a guy who was, you know, got off to a great season. Then SEC play rolled around, and after the Kentucky series, he was really nowhere to be found. But our lineup is way better with him in there. He's been in there the last two games against Vanderbilt. He's in there again tonight, and you know, he changes the lineup. He gives a different dynamic to the lineup, and as an extra big bat in the lineup. where he might not necessarily do great, but his presence in the lineup can make him better. So, you know, I think they got everything going in the right direction right now, but only time will tell if I'm right.
Trey, you know the expectations and the standard set for this program. You were part of the group that set it. That's not being met right now, and Chad Holbrook is the first to say that. And you know, a lot of fans who have become accustomed to winning and winning big are really directing a lot of daggers in that direction. I mean, what do you say to those people that that are blaming Chad Holbrook and they're saying, hey, look, he took over and they've gotten worse every year?
Well, what you would have to say if is Coach Holbrook is he'll be the first to tell you that, he's got to take the blame because he's the head coach. That being said, to the fans, I would say that we've got a great guy who's great in the community. You don't get voted as one of the best ever coaches in Sports Illustrated if you're not actually one. You don't go to Omaha 8 to 10 years or whatever as an assistant like you did if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to recruit. So I would just say, hey, let's relax a little bit. Let's obviously we know we got some personnel issues this year, but wouldn't you like the one of the best recruiters in the country to try to solve that problem as opposed to getting rid of them and hiring somebody else? I mean, I love Coach Holbrook. I think he's going to do a good job. I think that he knows what he's done wrong. He's still learning from his mistakes, and hey, there's still a lot of season left this year. Taking 2 out of 3 from Vandy was a huge start, and we're getting off to the right track tonight against Tennessee. So I think he's going to be just fine. And once again, time will tell. But as far as Coach Holbrook's concerned, I really like Coach Holbrook.
And you mentioned the good start against Tennessee, and they have Auburn next week at home, a winnable series, and then it does get pretty tough. Texas A&M and LSU are their final 2 series, and they have to go to Texas A&M. But Holbrook was on the show last night, and he said, "Look, I still see a team that can play its best baseball, and he expects them to play their best baseball down the stretch." And he cited the Fresno States and the Cal State Fullertons. He thinks this is a team that is just waiting to go on that big run.
Well, I hope he's right. Once again, it goes back to not making the game too hard, which means that sometimes you're going to lose baseball games. But if you're going to lose, you need to lose them the right way, which is going right after guys and making routine plays on defense. And when we've gotten in trouble this year, it's really when we fall behind in counts, we miss locations as opposed to really challenging the hitters. And sometimes offensively, our approaches are really bad where, we'll have like the quickest innings I've ever seen before where we'll make an out and like we'll end an inning in 4 pitches. But, it's really hard. We got some good players and, we better win a lot of games here over the next 2 weeks. Cause like you mentioned, at the end of the schedule is really, really difficult. So we need to try to get as many wins here the next couple weeks. And then once you win, you start getting hot. You got more confidence, then anything can happen.
Right. And they looked like they had some going. I know it got dulled a little bit by losing that midweek game against Furman, and they've dropped a lot of midweek games. It has been a very un-South Carolina-like baseball season, but you never know. I mean, you'll be remembered for how you finish. Trey, we appreciate it. I heard you're hanging out with a true great Gamecock baseball player, Kip Bachnight, tonight.
Yeah, I'm hanging out with Bachnight, and actually I'm in Blake Taylor's mansion right now. Hey, Kip and Blake, say hello to all the loyal sports listeners in South Carolina.
Yeah, there they are. All right.
Kip Bachnight brought the Golden Spikes trophy over here. He takes it with him everywhere he goes.
I would too. I would. Yeah, that thing would be. I'd make dinner reservations and have a seat for that thing. Trey, we appreciate it. Yeah, tell Kip and the gang that we said hello as well. That sounds like a motley crew tonight. All right, Trey Dyson breaking down Gamecock baseball, and they lead 3-0 in the top of the 3rd inning at Tennessee right now. It's time for our Braves Report with Mike Morgan, brought to you by Play It Again Sports off Bauer Parkway in Columbia, where you pay less for more. Chris Mosley and the friendly staff will help you with the best selection of golf clubs in the Midlands for adults and juniors. By Founders Federal Credit Union, helping South Carolinians attain their financial goals, and by Mattress by Appointment. Real simple. You give them a call and save 50 to 80% on premium mattress sets. Call 803-530-8549. That's 803-530-8549. All right, Mike, the Braves in the city of brotherly love trying to snap out of their little skid that they hit in New York against a Phillies team. Let's face it, Mike, they're a hapless Phillies team they're playing this weekend.
They are hapless, and still a bit dangerous, but very much hapless. It's a franchise that took a blueprint that really worked back in 2008 when they won a World Series, and then they just went crazy with their money, made some really senseless moves, signing a bunch of older players to extremely lucrative and long-term deals that they couldn't get out of. So while Ryan Howard and Chase Utley and guys like that have great name power, they don't have a lot of staying power in terms of being effective players, and they've been biting the bullet. In a lot of ways, you could make the analogy that they almost had a scenario of Dan Uggla and B.J. Upton. They had two guys, paid a lot of money, that they couldn't unload to anybody. The difference is at least the Phillies got some production out of Howard, not lead to the tune of a World Series title, and obviously the Braves got virtually nothing out of Uggla and Upton. But big series in terms of, the Braves will come back home after this, take on the Nationals. You know how good they are. So a chance to right the ship after a very brutal series in New York.
Alex Wood on the mound tonight. The pitching has been a little shaky, even with Tehran, their ace, yesterday against New York, but a big fan of Wood, and he seems to be really building on what he did last year, where he had some flashes of solid pitching. Yeah,
I think Alex Wood is, in this day and age, a frontline starter, not an ace, but a guy you put in the front end of your rotation and you feel good about. Home or away, against right-handed dominant lineups or left-handed dominant lineups, he's effective against both, and he just knows how to pitch. And as long as he stays healthy, I think he'll do good things for you. And they need a big start from him. Julio Tehran was a letdown last night, so now you need your number two to kick back and give you a bounce-back type performance and set up another guy you feel good about, Shelby Miller, in tomorrow's ball game.
The Braves seem to be relatively healthy now at this point in the season. That's one thing they have going for them.
Yeah, that is a good thing. And when you look around Major League Baseball, it's kind of a rare thing. The disabled list has been really busy for teams throughout Major League Baseball, really the last 5 years or so. It's been kind of an epidemic. And Atlanta's certainly gotten bitten by that bug over the years. But right now, so far, so good. Minus Mike Minor, of course, so we talked about last night. He's a guy that I just don't know if you can depend upon this year. But in terms of your everyday players and your rotation as a whole and your bullpen, so far so good on the injury front.
And where's Mike Morgan working this weekend?
I am at Plainsman Park watching Georgia take batting practice as we speak. We've got game 2 of the 3-game series tonight on the SEC Network.
All right, Mike, we'll look for you there, and we'll talk to you next week, and hopefully the Braves will have a great series there in Philadelphia and get back on track.
All right, guys.
All right, Mike Morgan, we appreciate him joining us, and the Braves trying to, find a way to keep pace with the Mets at this stage, and the Phillies are a good way to do that. I'm not really frightened.
Well, they ran
the Philadelphia Phillies.
The interesting thing is the Mets actually, if you think about it, the Braves were helped in at the fact that they could have been chasing two teams, but for whatever reason, ever since the playoffs, when it seems that St. Louis stole the playoffs from Washington, the Nationals have problems. Every time they see that St. Louis on the cap, the Cardinals have their number. It is incredible how much the Cardinals just put fear in Washington, both at home and on the road.
USC and Tennessee still 3-0 Gamecocks as they play in the top of the 4th inning now. Just was passed along a note out of the SAC tournament, the opening round. Newberry shutting out Wingate 9-0, and the Wolves they're hot. They are hot right now, white hot. 14 wins in a row for them. So nice job there by Newberry. And Clemson and Georgia Tech, they'll get started in Hotlanta here in about just a little over 7-8 minutes from now. They will get started in Atlanta. We'll keep our eye on that score.
And of course, Clemson looking for traction. They're 10-9 in the ACC. Finally got over the 500 mark, winning that abbreviated 2-game series, the doubleheader.
10-9. I mean, that conference, you have Louisville and you have Florida State, and then you go, who's next? I mean, that league is struggling for elite teams right now. Recruiting, Seventh Woods, the latest on the star out of Hammond. Is he close to committing to USC? We'll tell you what his father said today. All right, let's jump into some recruiting, beginning with Seventh Woods, the 2016 star out of Hammond High School. Seventh Woods, according to some scuttlebutt, was very close to committing to USC and Frank Martin. Martin had an in-home visit with the family Tuesday, and that set off the speculation that Woods could be about to drop for the Gamecocks, but his father told Kornblut this afternoon, no decision is on the horizon, quoting Lewis Woods Sr., will be a little ways down the road. I don't know what's out there on the internet, but it's going to be down the road. He really doesn't have anything close in his mind at this time. End quote. USC and North Carolina have been talked about the most in terms of the closeness with Woods, and they have recruited Woods the hardest, according to Hammond coach Mark McClam. Tar Heel coach Roy Williams first offered Woods as a 13-year-old and has made several stops to see him play. But he made an in-home visit with the Woods family a couple of weeks ago. But it would not be correct to say the battle is only between those two, according to the elder Lewis Woods. I don't know what's out there on the internet saying it's Carolina and North Carolina. Of course, those schools that have contacted him. Other than that, everything is really wide open. He's just going through the recruiting process and seeing who's really interested, end quote. So we can pump the brakes on the talk that Seventh Woods is about to commit. To football, defensive end Ron Johnson, 6'4", 230, out of Camden, New Jersey, is one of the top prospects in the Garden State. But a visit to the Palmetto State his sophomore year has him highly interested in USC. The Gamecocks are keeping in touch with him. Johnson visited Michigan 3 weeks ago and said the Wolverines are also strong with him. He also put Rutgers, Penn State, Ole Miss, North Carolina, Alabama, and Miami as other programs that are strong with him at this point. Coaches from Penn State, Auburn, Pittsburgh, Rutgers, and Temple have been in to see him, and Miami will come in Friday. Johnson said he plans to visit Alabama, Auburn, and Ole Miss real soon, and he'll get back to USC at some point. No favorite right now, and he plans to release the top 12 soon. Last season, Johnson had 84 tackles and 10 sacks. And linebacker Donta Evans out of Lawrenceville, Georgia. He once played for Lake Marion. He would have the strongest interest in playing his college football state here in the Palmetto State if he picks up an offer from one of the big boys. Clemson and USC have both shown interest, and they appear closer to offering the Gamecocks perhaps closer than Clemson. USC recruiter G.A. Mangus checked in on Evans last week at his school and plans to come back for another look when spring practice begins next week. Evans insists that he moves just fine on the football field, and he will visit and has visited Illinois, Ohio State, Kentucky, Louisville, Auburn, and Tennessee during the spring. He will visit Ole Miss, USC, Georgia, Tennessee, and Boston College in the weeks ahead, and thinks he'll get offers from them on those visits. He already has offers from Auburn, Louisville, Kentucky, NC State, North Carolina, Wake Forest, and Illinois. If you want more, go to our website, sportstalksc.com. Recruiting is there, and it's updated not just during weeks and days that we're doing the show, but every day, 365 days a year, sportstalksc.com. Top of the hour, but don't fret. We've got another great hour of Sports Talk coming your way.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We're back, hour number 2, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Glad you're with us. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes, holding it down. Phil Kornbluth with the night off. Graham Pope behind the glass. You can join us if you so choose, 800-956-7266, or drop an email, talkback@sportstalksc.com, or maybe you want to interact with us on Twitter. You can do that as well at SportsTalkSC. We're located here in our Columbia studios, located downtown Columbia, right on Main Street, looking over my shoulder. Beautiful night here in the capital city. I'm told some bad weather's on its way to the Palmetto State this weekend. Of course, just in time for the weekend, the rain is on the way. USC and Tennessee underway in Knoxville. They're actually in the top of the fourth inning. The Gamecocks have a 3-0 lead, 3-4-0 for the Gamecocks, 0-1-1 for the Volunteers. Clemson and Georgia Tech just getting started in Atlanta. Presbyterian and Coastal Carolina, they're in the books. And Coastal Carolina coming back and getting an 8-6 win. They trail for a majority of that one. So the Chanticleers knock off the Blue Host. The College of Charleston, 22nd ranked in the latest Baseball America poll, the only in-state team ranked in Baseball America. They're playing Furman down in the Holy City, and the Cougs have a 1-0 lead. So Monty Lee avoiding the Sports Talk jinx.
There's an update on that score now. It came back. It's 6-0.
Okay.
Charleston. So Charleston.
That is an update.
And, of course, the interesting thing about it is people have to remember, and I have to remember myself this morning, I had to kind of remember that College of Charleston is now a member of the Colonial Athletic Association, because I'm thinking it's a conference weekend, 3-game series. Then I said, wait a minute, hold it. They're playing a non-conference weekend series against Furman. Of course, those two battled it out for several years in the Southern Conference, but now this is a non-conference series on the weekend. Something rare you don't see too often.
Yeah. Winthrop and Charleston Southern playing now. They are in the 5th inning in Charleston, and that one is 1-0 in favor of Winthrop. The Citadel was taking the gas earlier against VMI. I'll get an update on that in the Southern Conference. VMI was beating them 6-0 early, and that one now in the 8th inning. Well, they're still winning, but it is a lot closer. The Citadel has pulled within a run, 8-7 in the 8th inning. Also with the SoCon, Sanford on top of Wofford, 3-0. Of course, the Terriers will play Clemson in a couple of weeks in Spartanburg. The Tigers needed that 56th game after the Duke game got rained out, no makeup. So they're going to go to Wofford and play the Terriers there.
I was surprised that this is the first time I think Clemson has been at Wofford to play a baseball game in 11 years. I was surprised by that.
Well, the way these things are going now, the way the midweek games have gone for South Carolina and Clemson this year, these in-state teams might have a tougher time scheduling some of these games. Coastal Carolina, Presbyterian, Furman, they've had, College of Charleston, they've had a lot of success against the big boys in state this year, and good for them. We'll have the full Monty coming up at the bottom of the hour. Monty Dutton to talk a little NASCAR with us. We always look forward to that. They're underway in the Big D, Dallas and Houston, game 3 of that series, and the Rockets lead 2-0. Dwight Howard just scored 2. I have to root against Dwight Howard now until the end of time. Not a Dwight Howard fan.
The one center that got away, L.A. was center city. I mean, you if you want to go back, you start with Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, and then Shaq, and all of them, of course, weren't drafted by the Lakers. They traded for him, and then Shaq was the one guy that said, Tinseltown, I don't like it that much.
Well, and you look at the Laker dumpster fire right now. I don't really blame him per se. Now, as a Lakers fan, you're bitter, but making the decision to go to Houston and play with established stars or stay with an aging but still grumpy Kobe Bryant and injured now Kobe Bryant, no. I mean, the Lakers would not have been even had he stayed, he would have played on some mediocre Laker basketball teams here the past couple of seasons. So well, I don't know that he made a bad choice. He just didn't want to be a part of that, and he didn't want the spotlight on him. He wanted to go.
Yeah.
And he's not the man at Houston. He's not ever going to be a guy that's going to be the man. He's got to have somebody else. But Shaq always had to have somebody else.
Yeah, in some players are like that. That's why I was telling people, don't be surprised, just like Tim Duncan, that you have a guy like Durant, even though his handlers will pull him, that he would not stay in Oklahoma City after his contract is up, because he's a kind of a laid-back guy that likes the fact that they're the only game in town, and he's in a small market like Oklahoma City. So it'll be interesting to see some of these players. And it was refreshing to see, because there were some complaints years ago, even by coaching staffs, including Dick Mott at Chicago at the time, that say, well, don't worry about David Robinson in San Antonio. They'll have him in Los Angeles before it's all over. That's what everybody thought, that they were going to make sure that all the players got funneled to Boston, L.A., New York, and Chicago. Back then, that was the thing.
I'd be okay with that. Well, I mean, that's they've changed it. The league's a lot different now. And when the Lakers had Chris Paul for about 2 hours, that was what everybody was complaining about. It was right after the lockout, and it got nixed. But they still got to go to L.A., just the other L.A. team that'll be playing later tonight against the Spurs. One of the many awful things that is the reason why the Lakers are probably going to be a top 5 pick in the draft, and they're watching the Clippers play in the playoffs right now against San Antonio, and Toronto and Washington also play later tonight. Some other news to pass along to you. Oklahoma State hit with a 1-year probation from the NCAA for violations, but they didn't find anything egregious. Remember what was that, an SI report?
Tried to rake it through the codes.
Man, you would have thought Oklahoma was going to get the death penalty after that story came out, but that ended up being a 1-year probation deal. Tony Romo, well, we don't have to watch the NFL next season. We don't have to watch it. Well, no need to watch
Romo
it.
Says
it's over. Tony Romo says the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl next year. So if you had plans to watch any of the NFL next year, watch an NFL game, or don't, because it's already predetermined now. The Dallas Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl.
Now
Tony Romo declared that today.
You signed a pass rusher that won't play to the 11th game unless he wins his appeal. You lost your top running back, which was your saving grace last year that saved you on many occasions, Marco Murray, and they're going to win the Super Bowl. It'll be interesting.
Well, the drama, the Super Bowl of drama, speaking of that defensive end you're talking about, Greg Hardy, the former Carolina Panther, who was signed by the Cowboys. He, according to a report on ESPN, was involved in a heated confrontation with teammate Devon Coleman. They had to be separated following an on-the-field argument. The incident occurred as the defensive linemen were running sprints and escalated to the point where teammates needed to step in. According to Yahoo Sports, Coleman made a pointed reference to Hardy's domestic violence issues.
See,
that'll do it right there.
That'll do it right there.
That'll do it. This is like an every year thing at the Cowboys camp. Last year, Des Bryant got into it with somebody that was making light about some of his past problems. Joseph Randle. Yeah, Joseph Randle and Des Bryant had to be separated by Jason Witten. So the drama of the offseason conditioning.
Well, it's interesting.
But the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
So
well,
says
it's
Tony
interesting
Romo.
you talk about drama. I can remember some of the drama even when we used to drive up to Furman, and this was when Jim Moore Jr. was coaching the Falcons. He would get it. He would get into it on the sideline with some of his assistants. And so the players had to pull him off. You can tell the volatile nature of his personality in interviews. So, Jim Moore Jr. was a lot of fun to watch on the sideline, even in OTAs.
I want to remind you, Sports Talk is presented by the Palmetto Project in part, and you can give them a call at 888-998-4646 to enroll in a health plan and avoid paying a tax penalty next year. Clemson and Georgia Tech underway in the first. The Tigers, nothing doing for them in their half of the first inning, so the Yellow Jackets will now step into the batter's box as Clemson will send their ace to the mound, Matthew Crownover, who has immediately retired the first two Yellow Jackets. And Crownover has been money for Clemson. This is a big series for the Tigers. They need to go out there and find a way to win this series. They've got to just pick up some wins, and they were building some momentum. But again, the midweek, costly for the Tigers. They went to Athens and took the gas Tuesday, losing by a touchdown, 7-0. USC and Tennessee, another important series that we've been talking about a lot tonight. They're now playing in the bottom of the fifth inning, and Tennessee is trailing the Gamecocks 3-0. So Jack Wynkoop has been very good, second straight week where he's been very good. Just one hit allowed through the first four innings against Rocky Top.
I don't know the speed on his fastball. That's kind of overrated anyway. But when you look at a guy like Crownover, somebody got to him early because he looks like a pitcher to me. Everybody, a youngster likes to show off his arm, or he's got a great breaking pitch. All he does is he throws strikes, and then he knows that when he gets ahead in the count, he expands the strike zone, get you to lean in or bite you inside, bust you inside. And he gets rid of you and say next, and this is the way he pitches. He is as a sure win as any time Clemson plays. Give him 1 or 2 runs, there you go, baby. Run with it.
Yeah, Wynkoop, Holbrook was talking about him yesterday. That his whole demeanor, he called him unflappable. He's from Southern California originally, then went to Virginia, but he's a surfer, and he kind of has that surfer's mentality where he never really gets too high, never gets too low. And Holbrook said he savors those situations where he's got runners on second and third and one out, and he's got to make a pitch. And he stepped up big. I think last week against Vanderbilt is a prime example of that. The Gamecocks free falling, lost 12-0 in the first game against Vandy. Everybody writing them off, and he comes out and throws a complete game against the Commodores. And at one point, led 2-0, gave up a 2-out bloop single that tied it up, but the Gamecocks fought back, and they ended up winning that game, and as we know, winning that series. And this is another big series for them in the Volunteer State against the Volunteers, 3-0. Gamecocks on top, bottom of the fifth, 1 out. And Clemson and Georgia Tech, again, they're still scoreless. And in the NBA, Houston and Dallas in the first quarter, Houston with a 16-11 lead. I'm not a big Mavs guy either. My wife's a big Mavs fan, so I like watching them lose, but my hatred for the Mavs is eclipsed by my hatred for the Rockets.
They're a shell of themselves right now. I mean, Rondo's gone, and they're already talking about they're not going to bring him back. The talk
they just sent him back, and they said,
the talk is he's headed for Los Angeles.
Yeah, well, hopefully not with a max contract coming his way. If the Lakers sign, I'll say this: if they sign Rondo to a max contract, they might as well just go ahead and sign up for another 5 years of being bad.
Well, I think he's I don't know, for whatever reason, he's an interesting character because I think when he gets on the court, he's fine. But he gets into these fits where he's the bad guy. You don't know what personality is going to come in that locker room.
Doc Rivers. I mean, has anybody enjoyed coaching this guy at this stage? And now he's getting older and his skills are diminishing. He's played his best basketball. All right, we're back. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes hanging out with you. And let's give you an update on the baseball scoreboard right now. The Braves taking on the Phillies, and they are heading to the top of no score in that one. And the Braves trying to snap a 3-game losing streak. It's been a mess for the Braves. By the way, I'm just going to say this now. The new ESPN scoreboards that they've done on ESPN.com, I can't stand it. If you click on the game, it gives you this game cast. It's really bad, whatever they've done. And anybody that's been on the ESPN.com site recently, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It is terrible. But I wanted to see if the Braves no, they did call up a guy from in-state, but he is not in the lineup. And I don't have the guy's name. Matt Long just came in here and told me his name, too. He's a Camden native. Yeah, Pope, see if you can get that for me. I think Tyler Cupp from one of our affiliates in Camden told us about him. And we'll get that name passed along to you. But an in-state guy is Michael Cone. Has been called up by the Braves. So congratulations to him, the Camden native. All right, Dodgers play the Padres later tonight. The Dodgers also scuffling a bit, 9-6, taking on the Padres, who are 10-7. So first place in the NL East on the line there. The Dodgers have Greinke on the mound. And good news for the Braves here, the Yankees. Good news for Corn, too. The Yankees leading the Mets 2-0. In the bottom of the first inning.
Well, this is probably the best, I guess, in-season Subway Series for New York right now, when you got the Mets winning 11 in a row, looking for number 12, and the Yankees winning 6 out of their last 7, and, of course, beating the mighty Detroit Tigers 2 out of 3 in Detroit. So both teams are coming in on a hot streak, so it should be a hot time in the Big Apple tonight.
13-3, the Mets, 9-7, Yankees. No score between the Red Sox and Orioles. Mentioned the Braves and Phillies scoreless in the first. And Cleveland with a 2-0 lead on the Tigers in the first inning. The Reds and Cubs playing in Cincinnati, and the Reds have an early 1-0 lead there. Nationals and important series in the NL East for both teams. The Marlins just trying to get their head back above water. And the Nationals also below 500 right now, and that one scoreless in the second. So that's where things stand in terms of the scoreboard right now.
Giancarlo Stanton money right now. He needs some playmates with the Marlins. If they can get some good pitching, the Marlins could maybe not make the playoffs, but they'll pretty much maybe decide who comes out of that East, because they can in a short series really make things tough for you.
All right, we're going to have the full Monty coming up next. Monty Dutton, he'll give us his thoughts on the race coming up in Richmond, qualifying in the books as well. Looks like Joey Logano has the pole, who Corn once said was not a world-class driver compared to Danica Patrick. Corn. Sports Talk on a Friday night at 7:30. It's time for our full Monty segment. Monty Dutton joining us to talk a little NASCAR. We're going to go racing with Monty. Our full Monty segment begins right now, and hope you're doing well tonight, Monty.
I am. I'm had a good afternoon. I went over to see Presbyterian play Coastal Carolina in baseball this afternoon.
That's a nice game.
Yes, the Chanticleers won, but it was a good ball game. It was 6-6 going into the ninth inning. So the Blue Hose seem to they're a much better team during the week than on weekends because they've beaten Clemson and South Carolina this year, and they're 4-11 in the Big South.
Yeah, and when they had a lead in that one for a while, I was following that game.
Yeah, the 3-run homer tied it up, and it was a good ball game.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who's feeling pretty good right now. Joey Logano on the pole at Richmond.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the main guys in NASCAR right now. Still just, isn't it amazing? He's in his 7th season and he is 24 years old.
That is amazing.
It's not allowed anymore. You can't. I mean, they don't allow. I think there's you can't drive in Cutting when you're 17. In some ways, the rule may have been changed because of his. You have these guys. Well, of course, you have to be 21, but you have these race car drivers who win the Coors Light pole and they can't drink a Coors Light.
Right. I mean, was that the reason? Do you think a liability issue? I mean, not because they couldn't drink, but a liability issue, or why? I mean, if the guy's 17 and is good enough to do it, why not?
Well, I think that was historically the way it has often been in racing. I know that Ricky Rudd debuted when he was 17 many years ago, and so I think that maybe NASCAR just was concerned that people were coming along too soon before they were ready, and maybe hitting the top because they came from money more than having the ability to do it. So that's one thing is that I think in some ways they sort of felt like they had to protect people against themselves by just moving, because it's a sport that requires a lot of money, and sometimes what determines whether a guy gets a ride is not whether he's ready or not, but whether there's money to make it happen. So I don't think a modest 18-year-old requirement was too unreasonable.
Well, tell me this: in the last 7 years, when you look at Joey Logano, when we've all heard the drivers, I don't know if it was Kyle Busch, I don't want to put it on him, but somebody would say once in a while, well, I got hooked on the bumper with Joey Logano. I'm just trying to teach this young boy how to drive. How has he matured in the 7 years he's been behind the wheel?
Well, it's certainly, I think that what we're just talking about, bringing guys along, I think that in this age, and I was talking with the coach over at the baseball game today, and we live in such an age of specialization in sports, where you don't see near as many kids who are the quarterback for the football team and the shortstop for the baseball team and the point guard for the basketball team. Many people play sports out all year round, and you have a lot of kids who are like in racing, who they don't experience life. They come along and they're driving a quarter midget when they're 7 years old, and they're homeschooled, and they've never been to a prom, and they know all about racing, but they don't know anything about life. And so I remember when Logano first arrived in NASCAR, everybody talking about it's amazing how good a driver he was at 17. And the amazing thing I thought was every time I talked to him, I felt like I was talking to somebody who was 12. And he has the school of hard knocks does a lot of things for people, because they learn how to mention their sponsors and deal with things. And sometimes if a kid comes from the wrong side of the track, first thing they do is straighten his teeth before they let him smile on TV. So the world has changed, and the fact that racing is sort of free agency, where you don't have a draft, or you don't have to earn a scholarship and all. I think that some safeguards are required, and I think even in Logano's case, when he showed up at 17, he lost his ride at Joe Gibbs Racing, because here's a kid who's 17 years old, and he's basically put in the car that Tony Stewart has won 2 championships with. and he wasn't ready to win championships. And so, you know, there was probably some stress with Home Depot, who'd gotten a lot of mileage from Stewart and things like that. So, as I said, I think that all the way across the board, I think that a lot of kids have to grow up when they get to the top. And if I were, or you were, just like everything else, you know, there's a danger sometimes when it's just like the kid goes off to college and goes wild. You know, you sometimes when you've been sort of repressed and controlled and everybody, when you get out there and all of a sudden you're a millionaire, hey, let me think of some guy. Who's that guy? There's this kid, I don't know what he does, but Justin Bieber.
Oh, yeah.
That name comes to mind.
Yeah, Miley Cyrus.
There you go.
There's another one. Yeah, I would shudder to think what I would have been like at 18. Absolutely. With a bunch of money and cameras following me around everywhere. It would not have been a pretty picture.
I'm scared to remember, Monty, when I was on a weekend in college and had $50 in my pocket, I was dangerous.
Yeah, thank goodness there weren't any.
Well, I mean, you know, frankly, I think you can get a little bit holier than thou on that, because you're exactly right. If I'd had that opportunity, if I'd been, you know, what if I'd been 18 years old with $1 million? Well, I'd probably do, I don't know, what a basketball player who buys everybody in his neighborhood a brand new car and his mama a mansion, and then all of a sudden he wrecks his knee, and the next thing you know, I mean, you can run through a lot of money when you get carried away at a young age. And so I think that, you know, when you're a millionaire at that age, and there's nobody on earth that'll have the slightest bit of sympathy for you, but in a way, you deserve that, because we'd all, if all of us put ourselves in their shoes, it would be very difficult to keep your head on straight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm older now. I think it'd be difficult to keep my head on straight. But that's
$1 million probably would be too much for me even now.
Yeah,
yeah. I'd like to try it though.
Yeah, certainly. I would love to. I mean, I have fun doing it. I'd go down in flames, but I'd have fun on the way down. Richmond, where does that rank on your tracks? Favorites or least favorite tracks? Where's Richmond in the Monty Dutton list?
I think that you know, Martinsville and Bristol are a little bit more bruising. Richmond is a great track, and it also, alone among the three short tracks, probably doesn't bring out the worst in racers as much. Although that having been said, last night in the charity race, they had somebody wreck the leader on the last turn, and this is like, you know, wow, they'll do that for charity, huh? But I mean, Richmond is an exciting race, but as I said, it's probably more, you know, it's probably a good balance between being a place where it has the excitement of short tracks, but it doesn't have the maybe the word would be violence. People don't get carried away as much as they do with the other two.
Who do you like this weekend?
I think, provided he can survive that devastating crick in his neck, I think Denny Hamlin's a hometown guy, and he's always been good on the short tracks and on tracks that are pretty flat. And so I got a hunch that he might win the race. But you know, I think that I think there's a relatively small group of usual suspects who can go out there and outrun everybody, and then there's a larger group of people that need a little break here and there, and that'll change and it'll broaden as the season goes along. But I think that you've got to look at Kevin Harvick no matter where they go. I think Kurt Busch is a guy who's going to win sometime soon, but I guess I'm going to pick the top flight driver who grew up closest to the track. I'll pick Hamlin.
Oh, sounds good. All right, we'll talk to you next week, Monty. We appreciate it. Your full Monty report. You can follow him on Twitter. Check out his stuff, his blogs. Monty's got all sorts of great stuff all over the place. Monty Dutton, the full Monty, here on Sports Talk. All right, let's update some baseball here, and we'll start in the big leagues and then move off to the college games. The Braves and Phillies scoreless in the bottom of the third. Phillies with one on and nobody out. Now back to Knoxville, where the Gamecocks continue to cruise 3-0 now as they head to the top of the seventh inning. Boy, that game,
Whoa,
they are moving.
come on.
In Knoxville. Now, they started at 6.
Right.
But they are moving right along. And I'm sure anybody at that game working it right now, if they knew I was saying that, I don't think it counts. I mean, there's this thing in baseball. If you're sitting in a press box and you're covering a game and you make the comment, "Game is moving along," it inevitably will bog down, and everybody in that press box will want to strangle you. Mostly the writers who are on deadline. See, I don't care. Free baseball to me, it's great. I don't have a deadline when I'm covering a game, but some are on deadlines. You say, "Oh, this game's moving right along," and then they start switching pitchers every 2 minutes, and the game goes to extra innings.
And some have already written the lead.
It's your fault. It's your fault. But it is 3-0 Gamecocks. 3 runs on 5 hits, no errors. They've left 6 on base, though. No runs on 4 hits, 1 error for Tennessee. Yeah, 2 of those 3 runs coming on a home run in the second inning. The Gamecocks got all the runs in the first 2 innings. So there you go, Logan Koch, the unexpected home run to right field for the Gamecocks in the second inning. So it's 3-0 there. Now Clemson and Georgia Tech, they are in the third inning, top of the third. Clemson, they've only had 1 hit, but they have a run, and that's because Georgia Tech is booting the ball around. 2 errors for the Yellow Jackets already in this one, and Clemson has taken advantage of those miscues with a run, so they lead 1-0 in the top of the third inning.
And down in Charleston, the only ranked team in South Carolina right now, College of Charleston, 20th in Baseball America. They've just tacked on a run and answering Furman's run. So in the bottom of the 6th inning, still batting, College of Charleston now leads Furman 7-1, and they have the bases loaded with 1 out.
Yep, I think the Cougars are in pretty good shape there. And you're talking last night to Monty Lee. He thinks that if they get on a nice run, as he said on Sports Talk, that maybe they can slide into a hosting spot in a regional. They have some work to do, and he admitted that. They really need to get on a run. But he made this point last night, and this is kind of hard to wrap your brain around. Nobody in the Carolinas could host a regional this year. North Carolina, North Carolina State, Clemson, South Carolina, none of those programs hosted. East Carolina even has hosted regionals.
I'm thinking with the showing they had last year in the regional and super regional, if College of Charleston gets on a roll, wins their conference tournament, they stay nationally ranked. I don't see why. The city of Charleston, right. Patriots Point,
right?
I mean, that's a big sell. In fact, both these Southern and CAA tournaments are in Charleston this year. So yeah, Charleston would be a great spot for a regional, and I think the NCAA would bite on that. I think they'd like to get into Charleston, and College of Charleston. They got a team right now, as he said. They shored up once they shored up their rotation. They've been going great guns. So yeah, Charleston, I can see them hosting a regional.
Yeah, they are playing very well, and yeah, that'd be great if they do. The last regional projection I saw for South Carolina, they had them going to Coral Gables to play Miami. And usually when they send South Carolina and Clemson on the road, they send them to an ACC or an SEC team respectively. Right. They send the Gamecocks. And normally that's been North Carolina. They just, okay, how many times have the Gamecocks and North Carolina ran into each other in the postseason over the past decade? They've been to NC State. They've been to, Georgia Tech. I've covered a regional there. They've been to East Carolina, but none of those areas. And Georgia Tech and Georgia aren't in a position to host a regional. No. So we can add the Peach State to the down years for college baseball. You just don't know how it's going to play out here over the course of the next few weeks. But, yeah, the Gamecocks could end up, if they make the postseason, and that's still an if at this point, they could end up in Coral Gables as a 3 seed in that Miami regional, or they could end up in Louisville as a 2 or 3 seed or a 4 seed even And I don't think they'd be a 4 seed if they get in coming out of the SEC, but they could easily be a 3 seed in a regional.
You don't think they stick them down Charleston if Charleston got a reach?
Perhaps. I don't know that Monty Lee would be a big fan of that idea. I don't think he'd want to see South Carolina or Clemson in his regional, and I wouldn't blame him, but I'm sure that'd be great for attendance. And, from a fan standpoint, I don't know how the coaches would necessarily feel about that. That's a lose-lose for everybody involved. All right, we're going to wrap it up on the other side of the break. Sports Talk on a Friday night. Playing in the fourth now. Braves still no score against the Phillies, and the Yankees now lead the Mets 5-0. So Atlanta, if they can find a way to beat the Phillies and the Yankees can hold on, there could be a game picked up in the NL East standings for Atlanta, but it is still relatively early in both of those matchups. Well, not really. Midway point coming up for the Braves and Phillies, and Yankees and Mets just in the third inning there. The Nationals and Marlins still scoreless in their matchup, although the Nats do have a runner on third with one out and Bryce Harper at the plate.
Well, the Nats, as I said before, they need Jason Worth back in that lineup to really set everything up. But as I said before, I think when all is said and done, when the weather gets hot, their pitching will take over in the NL East. The key point to the Mets or Atlanta is you better be thinking wild card at this point, if at all possible.
And USC, they have a chance to perhaps bust it wide open in Knoxville. It's 3-0, but the bases are loaded with one out, and Martin is at the plate for the Gamecocks, so they have the heart of their order, and that should be a chance to make some hay. Although that's what happened, that win, and we should give Furman a lot of credit for beating the Gamecocks at Fluor Field. It was 2-1, but the Gamecocks had the tying run in the ninth inning on second base after an error, and they had the heart of the order coming up. He had Schrock, Martin, Caldwell, and he struck out three guys. Boom, boom, boom. Best three hitters in that lineup to win that game. So you never know how it's going to work out, but that was a nice win for Furman. And the Gamecocks now trying to bust that one open in Knoxville. Clemson still leading in Atlanta over Georgia Tech 1-0 in the top of the fourth.
But sometimes Crownover, that's all you need. There's your run. Let's go.
Yeah, Crownover's been good. 3 innings. He's given up 3 hits, but I think he'd probably would sign up for another run or two. And the Tigers have a few guys on base now with 1 out. In fact, the bases are loaded here with 1 out, so they have a chance to get a little insurance and a little breathing room. And that's another big series. Every series for USC and Clemson to this point is big because both teams right now, I think. Could be on the outside looking in with the postseason. Certainly Clemson, USC, some projections had them in. I haven't seen any projections that have Clemson in right now.
Well, if you're South Carolina or Clemson, one of these series you got to be thinking sweet, because especially South Carolina, because you got still got A&M and LSU to face. I mean, come on. I mean, you got Murderers Row staring you in the face, and they only got, I think, Clemson has about 15 games to go, and South Carolina has 14.
Right.
So they
stretch
have to
run.
get it going. Yeah.
It is to stretch. All right, that's going to do it. We'll have stuff all weekend long, including the scores and updates from these baseball games at SportsTalkSC.com, so you can follow along there. And we'll be back Monday, same time, same place here on Sports Talk. Have yourself a great weekend.